So yeah, forgetting about what is re-rendering, how things are rendered under the hood. Just you've been given an assignment and you need to figure out how to do it. How would you do something like this? I will share screen in just 1 second. That is what this class is going to be. We will be doing it in Next, but we won't really be understanding the Next.js concepts. We will not be writing any backend. Pure front-end YouTube clone in Tailwind plus Next.js. The reason I chose Tailwind is someone recently had an assignment for an interview they got. Usme the requirements were Tailwind for styling, Next or for authentication, Next.js 13 for the framework. So MUI I feel is slowly dying. Tailwind is good to know. There are a lot of downsides to Tailwind, and you might feel like why are we writing this ugly code? But unfortunately, the companies that are hiring, the open source projects that are out there are slowly moving towards Tailwind. So it's good to know Tailwind generally. Okay, sorry, my throat is hurting a little. तो मैं पानी पीता रहूँगा बीच में. तो goal for today's video is someone gave you an assignment, build a YouTube clone. How would you build it without understanding re-rendering, without knowing Next.js server side rendering, what that is? You don't need to focus on any of that. You need to very practically write this code, YouTube clone, very quickly. So you need to focus on writing application logic, writing a lot of HTML, CSS and JavaScript. Forgetting for now what is re-rendering, what is server-side components. Generally, thoda we need to know what are components and how you can put one component in another component and props, which I will discuss. But other than that, we won't worry about backend calls. We won't worry about any of that. We will hard code everything on the front end. I'll try to build YouTube again. All right. That is the goal for today's class. It is beginner friendly, but again, React and Next.js we are doing, so it might feel like it's not beginner friendly or slow. I don't want to teach HTML, CSS, JavaScript ekdam niche jaake, but I think it will be a good class for beginners. And thoda through pattern matching, thoda through what you're learning today, you will get a good recap of everything we've learned until now when it comes to front end, not the back end part. All right. Okay, very good, very good. Let's get right into it. Week 12.2. Let me see. I need to close something else. No, we're good to go. So, as I said, recap class, understanding React and Next.js in a very hands-on fashion. So please keep your VS codes ready. You are going to clone this with me and like do a bunch of coding. And we're trying to build YouTube in Next.js from scratch using Tailwind as the styling library, not Material UI. Before we proceed, there are 4 important things you need to know in any front-end framework as you change from Material UI to Tailwind to some other new front-end framework that comes in the future. You need to at a high level understand how 4 things are happening there. If you understand these 4 things, you should be good to go, and you should have enough tools to be able to clone other websites. These 4 things are: 1, Flex and Flexbox; 2, how are grids working in that specific front-end system? How does responsiveness work in that specific front-end system? And finally, how do you do small things like background color? What should happen? The text color. How do you change styles when you hover over something? Things like these. If you know these 4 things in any framework, you can become very framework agnostic. You should understand how these things are happening in that framework, but these are usually enough and a few other things to build the clone of any other front-end website. All right. Today, we're going to start learning a new front-end framework called Tailwind CSS. So we'll understand how, very basic, very high level, these things work in Tailwind CSS and what these things are. We have done a few of these before. I'm going to recap these, what are these and how to do these in raw HTML, how to do this in Tailwind CSS. All right. Let's start with the first one, Flex. How many of us already know what Flex is? Chalo batao. Flexbox, using it in HTML, MUI. How many of us have done it? This will also be a very interactive class because throat. Why are you calling yourself beginners if 90, 85, 83% of the people already know what Flexbox is? That is great. It's a good start. And तो फिर तुम फंसे कहाँ हो भाई? If you know this much, where are you guys stuck? Why do you guys are saying कि हाँ, we don't understand React right now? Chat is open. We are not using Turbo. Very basic, as I said. Oh, time only. Next part, React core implementation. Maybe other than beginner joinees. Hooks, Next.js only. All right, implementation. Cool. So two high level things I see: one, Next.js; two, implementation. So let's worry about implementation in this class. We are using Next.js, but I won't be teaching very depths of Next.js today. It'll be a very hands-on class to clone YouTube, and practice sort of helps. All right. So Flexbox, 85% already know, is if you write three div children inside a big div, they appear one below the other below the other. Div is meant to take the complete width. If you want elements to appear next to each other, for example, if I go to YouTube, the thing that we're trying to clone today, this div, this div, this div, and this div are in the same line right next to each other. So if you want to put things in the same line, you need to use flex. If in this code, I just add one small thing, which is the parent div has display flex and justify. Oh, I moved 2 slides. If in this div, sorry for the movement, in the top level parent div, I add display flex in the style, they all come in the same line, but they're not styled very well. They're all in one left corner. So for this, you have very nice constructs in justify content. Justify content tells, given that the children are in the same line and you're using flex, how should you position them? Just space between means first one, whatever the children are, they have equal amount of space between them. There are a bunch of other justify contents. For example, flex start. So if I put flex start here, all three of these will come to the start. If I put flex end here, all three of these will go to the end. Again, they only take as much space as needed, and that is because the parent div has display set to flex. All right. Flex start, flex end, and then center. What does center do? Pushes all the children to the center. So if I have justify content center, all three of these will come here. Space between, the thing that we already saw, they have equal amount of space between them. This is also a very nice pattern you'll see in websites. Finally, there is something called space around, which basically looks something like this. Pehle thoda sa, then the first div, then X space, then the second div, then X space, then the third div, then X by 2 space here. So basically it gives some, if this is the space between the elements is X, it puts X by 2 here and X by 2 here. Most of the times what's used is either center or space between. Flex start is default and flex end is barely used unless you're writing a website in which things need to be positioned to the end. For example, if you look at this left right button here, it needs to be positioned to the end. This is where you would use flex end. All right. How do you do this in Tailwind? We saw how to do this in raw HTML CSS. If there are 3 children, child 1, child 2, child 3, first one has color green, red, and pink. The way to do this in raw HTML CSS JavaScript is give it style, display, flex, and justify content space between. Tailwind is a new library. It's basically a CSS framework that you import somewhere in your JavaScript, which we are not worrying about in this class. Question is, once that is imported, how do you create CSS that looks something like this in Tailwind? And the answer is this. Rather than those two things, you put class name equal to flex and you write justify between. Harkirat, how do we know where do these come from? And the answer is the Tailwind docs. So the output, as you can see, is the same as from 2 slides before. Rather than adding style, I added a class name, and Tailwind, the way it is written, and this is purely on the developers of Tailwind, कि उन्होंने कहा, if you want to use flex, so as you can see, if you look at the Tailwind documentation, Tailwind is sort of written like this. Okay, you have your image tag, your div tag, you add a class, and then here you add Tailwind specific classes. For example, if you write pt-6, this means a padding top of like 6 pixel or some other number. If you write bg-slate-800, means a background color of something. So this is how you generally write Tailwind CSS. All right. All these are defined by the Tailwind developers, and the place to look at when you're trying to code a website and trying to understand what should you put if you're using Tailwind is their docs here. So see Daisy, let's see where they are. So here on the left, you will see all the docs. For example, if I go to flex, it will tell you कि if you are using Tailwind and if you want 3 children that look something like this, use this. Div class equal to flex. This is similar to div style equal to display flex. Tailwind will internally replace that, or they have already CSS files defined somewhere where flex converts to display flex. This has 3 children, child 1, child 2, child 3. If you want, let's say, the justify contents to be, let's see, space between, then you have to write add the justify between class, and it will do the same thing. For example, if you want to add justify content center, you add justify center. It does the same thing. All three children are in the center of the parent div. If you want flex end, then you add justify end as the class. This is how they have defined it. We have to look here and follow whatever this framework expects. This has become very popular, so a lot of developers know this, understand this, and you will see this across many frameworks. Finally, justify between is the thing that we were using, and this is where that specific class comes from. So anytime you want to do anything in raw CSS, if you are using Tailwind, just Google how do I add background color red through Tailwind. It will take you to a page like this, and there you can understand what class you should use. All right. The first thing that we were understanding was flexbox and how to use it in Tailwind. The answer is this. Class name equal to flex will create the display flex for the parent component, and justify between in this case is equivalent to justify content space between. Where does this come from? From the Tailwind docs. Some learning is required, but usually this is like 20 odd class names you need to know, and usme you can build a YouTube clone. All right. This is the first thing. Let me do a quick paste check. Simple, straightforward, very hard. Kuch nahi understand. Is this clear? All right, good to go. Grids. We have done grids in what do you call it? Material UI. This is how you do grids in Tailwind. Forget flex. Another way to put 3 elements in the same row is using grids. We have done this in Material UI. How do you do it in Tailwind? Div class name equal to grid. This means all the children below it are going to be part of a grid. And then grid calls 3 basically means this group should have 3 columns, all of them equally distributed. This is all you need to do to have 3 divs right next to each other, taking equal spaces. And this works very well if you have equal space for all your children. That is not always the use case. For example, if you go to YouTube, these elements, as you can see, all you need is a grid of 4 elements. But if I open a video, this is the grid on the left. This is an element on the right. These 2 are right next to it. So we will need a grid. This is the parent element. This is the thing on the left, which is slightly bigger than the thing on the right. So we need to understand how to create a grid which have different widths as well. The way to create a width with grid with equal widths is this. Just represent how many children do you want. If I add 4 here, you will see child 1 green, child 2 red, child 3 pink, and then some extra space here, because I told we need 4 elements per line and I only used 3. And which is why if I add grid calls 4 here, you will see 3 of them on the left, 4th space will be empty. All right. Unequal widths. So if you want unequal widths, if you might remember from our Material UI grids, you would tell ke how much space, assuming this window is split into 16 parts, how much space should each child take? This guy is very similar. You tell ke bhai, there are 12 children. So earlier we said grid calls 3. Each one of them takes equal space. What you can do here is we have 12 columns, and you can say call span 5, which means first guy takes 5 of those 12 columns. Call span 5. Second guy also takes 5 of those 12 columns, and the last guy takes just 2 columns. That is how you can do unequal widths. So in our case, when we will be creating a video player on the left and this thing on the right, what will be on the left? Maybe something like calls span 9, and what will be on the right? Calls span 3. All right. This is how you do grids in Tailwind. Only 2 things you need to know: what to do if there are equal widths, grids space, grid call 3, the number of columns that you need. If you need unequal widths, then divide the window into 12 columns and then choose wisely which one do you want. If first one needs to take more, second one needs to take less, so on and so forth. Lastly, not lastly, but like last big thing is responsiveness. Before that, very quick poll. Is grids clear, straightforward, or is it hard? Of course, we will write this so it will be more easier to understand. 91% in a beginner class. Beautiful. Responsiveness. Responsiveness is very important in most websites. If you go to YouTube, as you make it smaller, you see there is just 1 card here. If I make it bigger, there are 2 cards here. If I make it even bigger, there will be 4 cards here. So as your window goes small and big, you need to change the number of grid children in your Tailwind classes. So when your width is bigger, let's say we were here, when your width is bigger, you need calls 3 here or calls 4. When your width becomes smaller, you need calls 2. When it becomes really small, you need calls 1, which means each row will only take 1 child. This is the first child, this is the second child, this is the third child. If it is somewhere in the middle, you need 2 here. So 1, 2 appear here, third one appear here, fourth one is empty. How can you change this based on the current width of the window is the question. And the answer is, this is how Tailwind suggests it. There is a very nice doc here. You can read if you want to after the class. Very detailed, but let's try to quickly understand from the high level and build our project. The goal is to build as quickly as possible in this class. It says there are 5 what are called breakpoints that have been defined. Okay, if the width of the window is less than 640, or exactly 640, the user is on the SM breakpoint. If the width of the window is 768, then the user is on the MD breakpoint. These are called breakpoints. Okay, iske pehle something was happening. After this, something new will happen. That is what a breakpoint means. Okay, this is where we cut a line. Okay, before this there is some CSS. After this there is some CSS. At this point, either one of two works. All right. What are the 5 popular ones? SM, MD, LG, XL, and 2XL. Iske upar, if someone has a very big screen, then screw them. Okay, if they have like this monitor I have in front of me, which is like 32 inch, then the website may or may not be responsive. We are not worried to optimize it this much. We do need to optimize our website to be very small, slightly bigger, even bigger, and so on and so forth. So what you have to do is you have to tell Tailwind that bhai conditionally make the style this if the video is less than SM. If it is between SM and MD, make the style this, so on and so forth. Let's see how you can do that in Tailwind. This is from their official docs, the page that I showed in the last slide. Let's read what it says. This is sort of important. Let me quickly do a check on recording. Hello. एक बार कान बंद कर लो सब. All right, cool. Working mobile first. So Tailwind specifically, every framework has their own opinions on how to implement something like this. Tailwind works in a mobile first fashion. Read through this. It says, by default, Tailwind uses a mobile first breakpoint system, similar to what you might use in other frameworks like Bootstrap. If you don't know Bootstrap, don't worry about it. What it means is unprefix utilities like uppercase take effect on all screens, while prefix utilities like this only take effect at the specified breakpoint and above. Too much. Let's understand what this means. Basically, they have given us 2 examples. They say, let's say you want, okay, on a small screen, this will center. You want mobile pe the text gets centered. If the user is on mobile, text gets centered. If it is a bigger screen, text is like on the left. Okay, you might think this is the right solution for this. So okay, this is the way to conditionally specify styles in Tailwind. Okay, if you want, just like we had bunch of classes here, let's go back a few slides. We had the grid class, we had the grid calls 3 class. Similarly, there is a class called text-center. What does it do? It centralizes the text inside the div. If your problem statement is on a small screen, div should be centered or text should be centered, you might think this is the solution. SM:text center. When the user is on small screen, SM text ho kar do center. When it's on the big screen, then default will kick in. But that is not how Tailwind works. They use a mobile first approach, which means the solution will actually be this. The solution will be by default text center, anything above SM text left. I repeat, SM: whatever is written here kicks in when the screen has crossed the SM breakpoint, which means if this is the SM breakpoint 386 or whatever it was, when the screen goes above it is when this CSS kicks in. Otherwise, the default will kick. If you are below SM, the default will kick in, which is we have defaulted to text center, and anything above SM, which means if this is the breakpoint for SM, if you go above it, then this style will kick in, and that is how you solve this specific problem. On mobile, things need to be centered. It might feel this is the solution. This is not the solution. What would this do? SM ke upar to it will be center, and below SM it will not be centered. So it will basically be the opposite. We want when the screen is small, text should be centered. When the screen is big, text should not be centered. This is the solution. Read through this. Ye bahut acha hai, they have written it very well. Try to read through this for 15 seconds, 20 seconds, then we will do a poll. Poll time. Very good. Very good. होशियार बच्चे. Very good. So this is great. Last thing that's left before we dive right into it and start cloning YouTube is understanding how you can add colors, font color, background color, things like these. So let's say you want to build something like, before that maybe you'll figure this out बाद में, छोड़ो ये इसको skip करते हैं. This I wanted to show how you can do something like this in Tailwind. I think you can figure it out. We will have to figure it out when we go, which basically is on a longer screen, you see them side by side. On a smaller screen, you see them one below the other. Can you figure out how to do this? This is enough context to understand how to do this. If on a bigger screen, you want things one next to the other, on the smaller screen, you want them to go one below the other, which is how things happen on YouTube. You see the grid. When it's long, when you make it small, one appears below the other. The solution is this, okay. Grid calls 12, which means 12 columns में divide कर दो, divide it into 12 columns. By default, they will take full space. All three of these will take full space by default. MD, at the MD breakpoint, which is somewhere here, the first one will take 5, second one will take 5, third one will take 2. So if the screen is really small, they take the whole space. As soon as the MD breakpoint is reached, they take what? First one takes 5, second one takes 5, third one takes 2. That is how you can build a use case like this using what we've learned until now. I think this is straightforward. You could have done this yourself as well. Lastly, there is a color system that they have written themselves, again, very opinionated. They have a gray, a stale, which is like basically nothing, or maybe some color. This is slate, gray, zinc, blue, dunya bhar ke colors. Usually people use this. You can also define these yourself. Okay, red should, the 50th shade of red should be something. The 50th shade of gray should be something. The 200th shade of gray should be something, so on and so forth. There is a config file where you can define this. And usually the colors that they've written have been written by very nice designy people. So these colors are good enough on most websites. If you need some special color, in your config file, you can change it. Every color has a 50th shade to a 950th shade, and you can define them yourself. You can use them as such. Let's see how to actually use them in using Tailwind classes. All right. This thing on the left is how you create a div which has a background of green and color of red. This is how you do it in Tailwind. BG green 500 means pick the 500th shade of green as the background color. Text red 500 means pick the 500th shade of red as the green, as the text color. And then both of these will give you the same output. Try to rein this in for 10 seconds. This and this give you the same output. Of course, this green is different from this green, but these greens are usually better than what's defined by raw HTML. And they have like very nice design people who have defined these, right? 5 more seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Alrighty. Font size. अब यहाँ से भाई it's very straightforward. This is BG color. This is text color. This is text size. Okay, हाँ. If you write text XS, it's equal to writing font size equal to 12px, 12px. If I write text dash SM, that is equivalent to font size 14px, so on and so forth. Again, they are opinionated कि या तो the font size you use 12, या you use 14, या you use 16. No easy way to do 15. There are ways to do 15 as well. Either change what these mean in the config file, or there are other ways to actually define 15, 14, 13, whatever you want. But again, the idea of the styling, the design system of Tailwind is that these are enough for you to build any website. So usually you tend to use one of these. All right, this is how you do font sizes. This is how you do border radius. What is border radius? If I go to YouTube, you will see there is a radius here. This is not square. There is like some curve here. The way to add it in HTML is using border dash radius colon something. For example, if I go here, look at this. I think you guys already know this. To this button, I can write border dash radius 100 px, And this will, as you can see, if you can see, this sort of became rounded by adding this CSS. The way to do this in Tailwind is rounded dash S. If you, there are a bunch of classes, you can choose which one to choose. Let's see, if you, the important ones are this: rounded SN, very small rounded, rounded little bit more, rounded LG, which is large, slightly more rounded, and then there is one rounded full, which is like bhai goli kar do. So this will, for example, be used in, if you go to YouTube, something like this avatar, this thing right here. These are all circular. So for that, you can simply add rounded dash full to the image tag and it will just work. All right, good to go. Very high level checkpoint. These both give the same output. This is how you do it in vanilla. Background green, this is how you do it in Tailwind. BG dash green dash 500, color red, text dash color red, font size 12px, text dash XS, border radius 4px, rounded. Both are the same things. Debatable if this is cleaner than this, but this is how Tailwind works. This is why there's a lot of conflict on Tailwind is bad or good. We don't know. It is highly verbose. It does promote inline styling, but this is what a lot of good projects use today. So we will have to learn this. Very easy to learn. Now let's start implementing it and do our first assignment, building a YouTube clone front end from scratch. All right. Now tell me this, do you want to do this yourself silently and I code this silently? Or do you want me to code and you guys like teach like I usually teach? So select yes if you want to do this yourself, and I will silently code. I will not teach anything. I will open my VS Code on the left. I'll open browser on the right. I will keep coding silently and try to promote, clone YouTube. Select yes if you want to do that. Select no if you want me to code like I do. So select yes if you want to silently code this yourself while I code. But if you want me to code, then select no. All right. No, it is. ठीक है, शुरू करते हैं. Let's get started. You have been given an assignment. You went to a recruiter. This actually happened to someone in our group. They were given an assignment, which was, they were given a Figma file. We don't know what that file was, but they had to clone the front end as it is. They had to use next auth for authentication. We have a video on it. We will not do it today, but this was their stack that was given. They had to use Tailwind CSS for the styling framework, and they had to mock the backend. I think they did not have to work on the backend. So we are doing something very similar. Only thing we are not doing is authentication, but this is like a common assignment that you get. At least someone got it in the group. I'm happy to post their assignment with consent, whatever the assignment was. If they're open to sharing it, I can share the whole thing with the Figma files as well. All right. You've been given an assignment, clone YouTube. Let's get right into it. Let's take a high level, this thing of what all we need to build. So there is a app bar at the top. There is a sign in button here. There is a search bar here. There is a icon here. There is a hamburger icon. We will not be building this hamburger thing most probably today. It will take slightly longer. If we get the time, we will. There is a left bar here. There is a grid system here. When you open a video, there is a video that's here. There is some things that appear here. Title, a bunch of buttons, description section, and then a bunch of comments. All right. This is the high level of what pages we need to build. Just the landing page, and then this page where you can see a video, and then recommendations on the right. Yeah, that's good to go. The way to usually build this, if you've been given this task to, let's say, do it in a day or two, is to build individual components first, and then finally glue everything together. So firstly, try to build the app bar, then try to build this card just once independently, then try to glue everything together. Maybe create these buttons first, then create the left sidebar, and then finally glue everything in. So generally, it's a good idea to build individual components and then glue them together. That's how I will approach this as well. All right, let's get right into it. The first component we are building, which again I would urge you to build yourself, is this card component, this guy right here, which is an image here, some text, a photo maybe, text. All right. First thing to do, initialize an empty Next.js project. So let me go to projects 100x devs. I've built this already some shape or fashion here. So you can actually go to week 12.2 and see what it looks like if you want to. I'm just going to do this again. I was doing this before the class. It took me less than 40-45 minutes to do it. So you can look at this already and clone it yourself, code it yourself, and look here for inspiration whenever you get stuck. Or if you want to code along, we can code along as well. All right. I'm going to create a new Next application, the project I'm going to call week 12 recap class. You can call it whatever. We want to use TypeScript. We don't want to use ESLint. We want to use Tailwind CSS. So like select yes here. We can use SRC. Select no for the app router. We have not done it. We are most probably not going to cover it. So make sure you select no. Either one of the two is fine for customized CSS. So this is the final configuration that appears. The only thing that's not default is for ESLint, we're selecting no rather than yes. Everything else I think is default. And also for app router, we're selecting no, not yes. All right, mine is installed. Hopefully yours is as well. File, open, week 12-recap class. So I have an empty Next.js project. Hopefully you have an empty Next.js project as well by now. You open the terminal. Let me run the npm run dev command here. You should as well. Take your time, no rush. Try to code along with me. I'm just running npm run dev and making sure things are up and running. Again, just to show what the terminal looks like, these are my configuration files. Take 20 seconds and try to make sure you're on the right, have the right configurations as I do. All right, cool. So you'll see a demo page that they have written. The CSS of this is also written in Next.js. The demo page that they have, you can actually go to source/pages/index.tsx. So again, don't worry about app.tsx. Don't worry about document in this class. This is a very highly implementation based class. You've been given a project, you need to finish it without understanding the nitty-gritties of Next.js and React. This is the index.tsx component. This is what renders on the slash route on localhost /3000. If you look at it, they have used a bunch of these classes. This is what Tailwind is basically. This is how the code eventually looks like. Even in production, when people use Tailwind, debatable if it's good or bad, but people use it. All right, let's remove everything. But again, if you want to, you will see some very nice things here if you want to learn. For example, if I make this smaller, this vercel goes to the very bottom. As you can see, by vercel goes to the bottom and it basically is no longer present in the top bar. However, if I make it bigger, it comes in the top bar. So you should figure out how they've done it here. And the short sweet answer is they're also using the LG : or SM : these things, LG : flex. So the position becomes static if the screen is large, but by default it is fixed. So when you're on a small screen, it is fixed to the bottom. When you're on a large screen or you reach the large breakpoint, it goes up here. Why? Because the position becomes static. Earlier, by default, the position is fixed at left 0, top 0, which is what puts it somewhere here. All right. I would expect this to be bottom 0, but okay, maybe somehow it works. All right. Oh, getting started with, because I'm looking at the wrong thing. This image logo. Fixed bottom 0, left 0. So this is what brings this vercel logo at the bottom by default. But what do we say? We say if large, then make the position static, which is how this vercel icon reaches the top when I increase the size of the window. Hopefully that's clear. So this is how Tailwind works under the hood, and these are the sort of hacks you use to make it work. Let's make this file completely empty. So remove everything and add an empty div here. Yahan tak are we good to go? Can I proceed? Or yahan pe bhi some issues, people are not able to set up. Are we good? Should I proceed? Should we start with cloning the project? Oh boy, यहाँ पे भी 82% ही है. What is up with the 18%? Tell me, opening the chat. Are you just catching up and cloning this locally or something else? Catching up, okay. Catch up. Take 5 more minutes. We actually want to get more comfortable with the React hooks, context API, state management, TypeScript. Okay. Poll again. Is Basics of React, everything clear. Is the context API, writing your own hooks, state management, is that what you need to learn? Yes, if that is yes, no if no. Should we change this class to not be a YouTube clone, but be a create your own custom hooks, do state management and recoil again, things like these? Should we change this class to that? Yes. Or should we stick to YouTube, then select no? Should we change this class to do that? Select yes if that's true. एकदम 50-50 बाप रे. All right. Okay. So देखो 52% is on this side, 48 is on that side. Unfortunately, this was meant to be beginner friendly, and this is what I thought. And this is for the people जो एकदम ही React के ही questions पूछ रहे हैं to TAs. So 50% feel free to drop off if this is very easy. I will take another extra class, either most probably next week, basically, where we can do context API, state management, things like these again. That is a good point. However, I would strongly suggest, there was a offline class that I made, which I think was pretty good, where we covered like context, this one, so 5.4. If you haven't already gone through this, maybe go through this. This was an offline class. I would like that to be a live class if we want a recap of that, but it is 50-50, and which means there is still 50% of the people who still want to build basic things like React components and they don't yet understand that. That is what this class is going to be. I will take another extra class on context, recoil, prop drilling, a bunch of other things also I've written, which we sort of need to understand in React. It can either be an offline class as well. Is it fine if that is an offline class? A lot of content on React, small things, for example, 20 minutes of context API, 20 minutes of state management, 30 minutes of something else, or should it be live? If you think offline is fine, select yes. Is offline class fine for that sort of advanced stuff? It is fine. Okay, perfect. So let's kick GraphQL to next week. And in this week, I will do one class where I will cover a bunch of React concepts one by one in an offline video. Today's live video is still going to be YouTube clone. Good. If you already understand YouTube clone, you can build it in Tailwind. Feel free to drop off. And I'll see you in the offline class where I will cover React. Basically, it will be this and a bunch of other things that I think we have not done yet or like might feel beginner friendly but aren't beginner friendly in that class. All right. I'm going to proceed with the YouTube clone now. Feel free to drop off if you feel this is very easy for you. Cool. Right there. Have you guys caught up to this point? Can you see hi there on localhost colon 3000 when you write it in index.tsx? Are we good to go? Shall I proceed? All right. %. That means good to go. I'm going to proceed. First thing, as I said, is build your first component. Now, what are components? It's basically a reusable chunk of code that is used to render the same things again and again. For example, if I go to YouTube, this thing should be a single component, and then you can simply use that again and again. Think of them as HTML elements that you're creating yourself. Just like there is a div element, there is a span element. You can create an HTML element of your own. How? We will see very soon. The one that we are creating is going to render this. We are creating almost an HTML element, not exactly, not true technically, but if you don't yet understand components, think of them as creating an HTML component of your own. All right. The one that we are creating is called YouTube card. The way to do this is in your source folder, create a new folder called components. You can call it anything. This is just standard practice. So right next to pages, you should have a components folder. In the components folder, create your first component, call it videocard.tsx. What should you call it? Videocard.tsx. I'm going to wait for 10 seconds for you to create the folder, create the file. So here, 3, 2, all right. Here is where we want to define that HTML component that we're creating. All right. The way to do that is components in React this HTML thing that we're trying to create an HTML tag of our own are always functions. Even though they are called components, they are functions. There is one special property of these functions that they can return HTML. So let's create a function here called video card, and then let's just maybe make it return a div and write hi from video card HTML component. So what is this? If you've only done JavaScript until now, or like HTML, CSS and JavaScript, not done React, this thing is a function similar to other functions you might have written until now. This is a normal function that, let's say, does something. It usually returns like a number, a string, something like that. But what are we returning from this? This guy is returning a div. That is how components are different from normal functions. There are two big differences. One, they return HTML or like other components recursively. For example, this could use another component which we might have written. Let's say I define another function here called video card 2, which is also a component. This could have divs, have spans, could also have video card, which is again another sort of HTML component that we have created. So a video card could returns an HTML or like internal components recursively, which recursively also need to return div. So by the end of it, the last component will purely return HTML, but parent components might return other components. All right. This is what's called a component generally in React, in Next.js. This is where you write a lot of reusable logic. All right. One more thing that's new in the React world is the prefix or like the file extension is tsx. At a high level, what this means is this contains functions which can start with an uppercase, which is a property of a component. Two, this contains functions which can return an HTML file. If I make this .ts, it will start to complain because .ts does not understand div. .javascript, .typescript files don't understand div. Only .tsx or .jsx files understand div. We are not also using any TypeScript until now, so hopefully this is fairly straightforward to people who have not done TypeScript. And my video is stuck. Maybe it's back. All right. Cool. So I have the video card component, which, as I said, this is the same as having. Oh shoot. Mic testing. How are we doing? Oh shoot. Into it. This might keep happening again. The AC is working. I don't know what's happening, but hopefully it doesn't happen again. Let me share my screen again. Let me open Visual Studio Code again. Alrighty. So hopefully you guys have created a video card component and you have your index.tsx file here. Over here now I would urge you to one, import video card from /components/video card, or you can also do import video card from @/components/video card. This is just a relative path that you can use. Both work. There is a error which says you have declared it, never used it, so let's use it. Now think of this just as any other HTML component, just how you can write a div, a span, you can write video card. Now video card internally has a bunch of other components. That is why it makes it a reusable chunk of HTML, and that is what components are in React. Is this part straightforward? This part clear? What are components? How they are very similar to HTML, CSS? Alrighty, smart people everywhere. Cool. So फिर तो ठीक है. Then it should be straightforward from here. Let's open Google Chrome and let's okay. Let's open localhost :3000 and in your terminal, let's run yarn dev. And then let's just quickly start coding components and understanding Tailwind. That's the new thing that we're learning today. Then everything else seems like you guys already know and we're good to go. Syntax error, video card doesn't return something right, it seems. It's not a module. Maybe use /component/video card. Oh, I'm not exporting function. make sure you export this function. If you don't, this file cannot import it. All right, save, refresh, and you should see hi from video card component. All right, where is this coming from? This is the top level file. If I write some ASDSD above, ASDSD below, you see ASDSD, you see ASDSD. What is in the middle? The component which renders our HTML. Now let's try to make it an actual video component kind of a thing, the thing that they want us to render. So let's see. Let's open the thing on the right. Let's open YouTube here. So here, as you can see, at the first thing is there is an image here. Let's try to get thumbnail of this DV. Get thumbnail from YouTube video. Copy image, maybe just screenshot it. So feel free to use an image of your own. I am going to take a screenshot of this. This screen might be open on your side. Feel free to take a screenshot of Didi on your side as well. So you have a photo on your local machine, or you can use some other photo from the internet that works. I'm going to take this photo. I'm going to put it in my public folder. You should also put it in the public folder. This is what contains all of your assets. I'm going to rename this to photo.jpg. You can rename this to whatever. And now our div, the first thing it needs at the very top is img src photo.jpg. Again, you can use whatever. And if I save this and if I go back to Google Chrome, you see the image for the woman right here. All right, we open this on the left. It's a good start. We're slowly getting there. Let's see what else does the YouTube card have. It has an image here and some title here. So basically this image and this whole section on the right needs to be what? A grid where the image on the left takes some space, the image on the right takes some more space. So let's do that. Let's create a grid div class name equal to grid space grid dash calls dash maybe 12. All right, I've created a grid. It has 12 columns. Div class name equal to grid dash क्या था यहाँ पे? School tell me in chat what should I write? No bounty for this. This is very straightforward. But what should I write here? Grid dash किसी को नहीं पता. Span. Good. Grid dash span dash maybe 2 for the image, because if this whole thing is 12, this is probably 10 and this is 2. So grid span this and then maybe reuse the same image, and then another div which takes the rest of the space, which is grid dash span dash 10, and here put some random title, hi there or whatever, Jawan Chalia Hindi Shahrukh Khan. Alrighty, save this, go here. Something I see, but it's not as good as I was hoping for. Let's see what's up here. Let's make this bg dash red dash 500. This whole thing is red, yet this thing is only taking some space here. Why? Maybe make w dash full here. Make the width of this guy full. It is actually full already. We see red here. But this text grid span 12 calls. What am I missing? Oh, div image and then something. Let me inspect this and see what's up. Maybe some of you already know what the answer is. Span 10. Okay, this is taking less space than I was hoping. This is only taking this much space. Ideally it should take the full space. So let's go to Tailwind, grid docs. I'm sure you guys have figured this out already. Grid gap 4. Span ही था ना यार वो. Okay, let's. Slides won't open now. Who will tell me the solution? नहीं है बाउंटी इसमें. चलो स्मॉल बाउंटी ऑन दिस वन, $25 बाउंटी. व्हाट एम आई मिसिंग? अरे भाई पूरा सोल्यूशन लिखो यार, राइट द होल थिंग. Grid calls span. Oh, you mean this? All right. You guys maybe are not right. No grid. The hell. Instead of grid span, use call span. All right. Okay. Good, sir. Good. A few people gave the solution. Let me see the first one. कौन था? Grid calls 12, BG red 500. Calls span 2, calls span 10. I think I have done that. What am I missing now? Call span है क्या? There you go. Now a few people gave the solution. How do we decide who gets the bounty? I will randomly decide. I think I found someone. Give me the final solution. All right. Cool. Sabko $1. That works as well. All right. Thank you guys. It was indeed call span. This is at the point at which you should go to these docs and try to figure things out. All right. Let's remove the background red color. Let's proceed. We also need to make this image on the left slightly rounded. So for that, on the image tag, maybe add class name equal to rounded dash full, and you see something like this, which is not great. So you need to make the width and the height of this guy equal. So let's see, w dash 20 h dash 20. I don't know, this will work. This sort of worked, only it pixelated the image a little. So you'll have to either have a square image for the thumbnail. I'm just proceeding for now, but ideally you should have a square image here so that this doesn't get pixelated. For now it just works. All right, we have the title. I think this space is a little too much, so let's make it slightly smaller. Let's make it take only 1, and let's let the other guy take 11. All right, sort of works. Let's also add some padding left, PL-2, which means add some padding to the left of this guy, maybe 5. Yeah, this looks decent. The image, some padding here, and then the text, and finally there is also some subtext and another subtext. So what is the first subtext? It is the name of the channel, I think. Let's call it Harkirat Singh. And the second subtext is the views and then the date. All right, let me just make this full screen. It's getting too confusing here. So views, let's say 46 million views, and then what was the other thing? 13 days ago. There is something about these, the color of these is very different from the color of these, so we should change the color to text dash gray dash 600 maybe, and same for the guy above. And also the font size of these is much smaller than this, so maybe make the text, what's the font size? Text dash base, let's make it that. Text gray 600, text dash base, same thing here. All right, let's see. Sorry if I'm flipping too quickly. All right, sort of works, still not great. This should appear right below this. Basically everything should be on the left, maybe below the title. So for that, in your grid, this is the first child, which is the image that's on the left. This should be the second child, which should have firstly the title, and then the description, and then the other thing. Alrighty. The only thing that's weird now is why does this have some extra space here, and the reason is we're adding more padding here, which you shouldn't. All right, sort of works, still not great, but I will take this as a good starting point for the card. We have created almost our card. If your image would be square, let me also take a square image for the lady, or maybe let's take a T series. Let's take the copy image address, Yeah, maybe I'm going to take save image, the square image, so that the thumbnail looks slightly cleaner. Desktop. Now, alrighty. Rename to thumb.jpg, and I'm going to replace the other image, which is this image right here, with thumb.jpg. Still sort of pixelated, maybe it's still not square, that's why, but I'm still going to proceed for now. The other thing is there should probably be some padding between these two things. So for that, the image and then the div should have some padding above it. So pt-2 gives some padding above. Pet means padding at the top. Alrighty. Maybe there's need of another padding on the left, but ignore for now. The only other thing is, if you go to YouTube, if you've already seen something, there is like a red progress bar that appears here, and there is some border at the top. Maybe let's begin with the border and let's ignore the red progress bar. I've done that in the official GitHub video, so you can go there and see how to implement that. Not too difficult. I have implemented another component called progress that puts like some red progress here based on that, lets you see how much of this video you've already seen. Alrighty. Let's add border to the image. The way to do that is class name equal to border dash, rounded. Alright, there is some border. I think it's a little too less. So let's do rounded dash XL. I see some border. I think it will appear better when we have a smaller grid of videos. Alright. We have created one component now that looks something like this. The video looks ugly, everything else looks sort of okay. Maybe let's make the gray slightly better. 400, 300, 400 is better. So this is sort of readable, and maybe let's change the width and the height of the photo to be slightly lesser. 12. Alright, this looks decent. Less padding between these two, and then we're good to go. PL-2. Alright, this looks like a decent card. This will appear much better when we have a grid, but I think this is a good starting point for our video card. What have we done? We have created one file that looks something like this, which contains the details of the video. Now, step 2 usually is to make these dynamic, which means just like HTML tags, here we have video card. We use the video card as an HTML tag, but HTML tags have some properties, right? For example, style equal to something and alt equal to something, so on and so forth. Wouldn't it be nice if the HTML card that we have created, we can send some attributes to, for example, the video title, which can be something like, I don't know, whatever, Shah Rukh Khan video, so on and so forth. So this is where props come into the picture, which is the other important thing to know if you're learning React. When you create these components or these HTML elements, they can also accept properties as input. That's what you can do here. You can accept props and replace this title with props.title. Again, when you're using a variable, make sure you have curly braces around it, and you can expect as many variables as you want as input. This will complain, and I'm going to add any here. Ideally, for people who know TypeScript, you should add something else. But if you don't know TypeScript, step 1, add props:any here, which means this can have any property, and then render props.title here, or add props.title here. We'll see how that comes into the picture later on. Maybe author here, props.views here, and then props.timestamp here. Alright, so this is enough for you to now have a generic component that can take props as input, and it will basically render the inputs that come in rather than them being hard coded here. One more thing that should be a prop is the image for that specific video. So here also I'll add props.image. So this is where TypeScript is sort of good. Let's not go there though. But rather than guessing these, if we were using TypeScript, our life would have been much easier if we would have given a very nice type to the expected properties. We're not doing that right now, but you should read about it if you don't know TypeScript yet, if you haven't gone there. All right, let's see what inputs we need to send for the current card. A title, how to learn coding in 30 days, 30-day plan, code with me. All right, this is the title. Image is going to be photo.jpg. What does it expect? So here it expects an image. Ideally it should be here that it expects the image. Hopefully you guys already knew this. And here it should expect like a thumb image, the thumbnail image. All right, thumbnail image is thumb.jpg. Again, as your project goes, there will be different inputs to this component. For us right now, it's just the hard-coded things that we had. Author, views, 100K, timestamp, 2 days ago. Where do these come from? They come from the backend, which is something we are not yet worried about. I have rendered a single video card. Let's see what it looks like here. It looks something like this. How to learn coding in 30 days. Harkirat Singh, 100K, 2 days ago. All right. We have our basic thumbnail. We have our video card component. This is the high level one thing you need to know: how components work, how they expect inputs, and how they render things. From what I can understand, a lot of people already know this, which is great. For the people who did not yet know this, are still struggling with React. React is all about creating reusable components. We have created one such component. We have used Tailwind under the hood to make our lives much easier. This component expects some props. Whoever is using this as an HTML element can send these props in, and based on that, the component will render the right thing. For example, if I change the title from Harkirat Singh to I don't know, Raman Singh, that changes here as well. Why is this cool? Because now if I want to add 2 cards, this is all I have to do. One below the other, use the HTML element again, and then you can see 2 cards. But the question is, we need to render a grid of cards. So that's what we will understand next. We could understand how to create a card. Let's try to create a grid of cards, because that's what appears on YouTube. Again, it changes based on the width and height. We are going to just start with a very simple grid, which renders 4 things in one row, then 4 things in another row, so on and so forth. Let me push this in case you want to do this locally. Like clone this locally and follow along from here. Also do a poll in 1 second, but let me create a new repo. Oh, I got logged out from everywhere. I might not be able to push this right now, unfortunately. So we'll have to follow along. At the end, I will push the repository. Let me do a quick poll. Very good. Is this clear? Hopefully the class is very beginner friendly. And this is like very easy stuff. Alrighty, 95. All right. Okay, bhai. Let's quickly complete the video grid then. Let's create another component here. Let's call it video grid.tsx. Here is another new thing that comes into the picture. How do you add for loops in a component? So let me hard code a bunch of videos here. Again, eventually these will come from your backend. Right now I'm just hard coding them here. This is what a single video looks like. Let me create a few videos. All right, I have created an array called videos, which has a hard-coded list of videos. Eventually these will come from the backend. They're the same photo, just the title is different. And I am exporting something called the video grid, which returns, which iterates over all of these and renders them on the screen. So what do we need? We need a grid of these things. So class name equal to grid-4, and then iterate over all the videos. This is where things might feel a little weird to beginners. Videos.map video. Until now we have used map for a bunch of things. Here we are using map to iterate over a normal JS array, but render components again and again. If we have 5 elements here, I can either do something like this: video card title equal to video of 0 dot title, complete this, then do another video card, then do another video card, or I can just iterate over them like this in a for loop. Now I need to send all these properties in for the specific video. So let me just go to video card, sorry, go to app.tsx, sorry, index.tsx, copy this, go here and paste it here. Only title would be what? Video dot title, image would be what? Video dot image, so on and so forth. Again, hopefully this is very beginner friendly, straightforward, and this is a good recap for what's coming next week, which is the recap of context API, things like that. All right. Cool. What have I done? Defined a videos array. Here what have I done? I iterated over them and render them one by one. Save, refresh, maybe go to app.tsx and index.tsx, rather than rendering video card, render video grid. Can someone just create a public GitHub repository? I'll just push to that. I won't have access. Never mind. Yeah, so I've replaced home to render video grid, which is a new HTML component I've created. This video grid component does nothing, defines a div at the top, which is a grid and has 4 children at a time, grid-4. And what does each children look like? It is simply a video card that we had written separately. All right. Hopefully this is also straightforward. And this doesn't work. 1, 2, I do see 3 videos. I don't see a grid. What am I missing? Grid-4. Oh, sorry, calls-4. My bad. Grid in Tailwind. Grid/calls-4. Alrighty. There we go. We see 4 videos at a time. I only have 3, which is why we see 3. Let me add another one. Or let me add a few more actually. And we see a very nice grid. The problem is these videos remain 4 in a row even if the thing goes smaller. And I think we have discussed this now in the beginning of the class. How do you fix this? By default, you say there is just one, which means one video appears in a row. We will see how to centralize it, but we don't have to worry about that because on the smaller web screen will be fine. By default, there is one. MD : if the mid breakpoint is reached, then maybe 2. Finally, LG : if the large breakpoint is reached, then 4. All right. 2 I see as soon as the 2 second breakpoint was hit or the mid breakpoint was hit. If I keep going and the large breakpoint is hit, I see 4 in a row. All right. I'm sure you guys cannot code this quickly with me, but do you understand? And is this if I push the code in, 100% beautiful. Stopped at 95, which is great. All right, so this works. What is the thing that we need to do next? One, we need to add an app bar. Second, we need to add a sidebar. Let's get into that. Maybe let's add some padding between these because they look sort of cluttered. So in the video card, I'm going to add class name equal to p-2, which will add some padding, maybe p-3. This looks decent. Only this thing is still squished, which is something I'd like to fix, but everything else looks okay to me. Let's try to add an app bar. So I will add a new component here. I'll call it app bar. What does the YouTube app bar look like? It has 3 sides basically. If you're on a normal screen, which is the logo, the search bar, and then sign in on the right. So let's try to clone that. Firstly, they need to be in the same row, which means we either need to use div grids with 3 children, or what you can do is you can use flex. Both of them work. I'm going to use grid maybe. Class name equal to grid-calls-3 The first child is just the YouTube logo. Eventually should be replaced with the image of this thing. I'm just writing YouTube. This should be the search bar, and the third thing should be the sign in button. All right, let's also add app bar to index.tsx at the top. So now we're creating multiple HTML components, app bar being one, video being one, and we're using all of them in our top level home. If I refresh, I see YouTube, search bar, sign in, one below the other, because I'm again missing some basic syntax. Grid calls 3. There you go. I added grid, which means this thing should be a grid, and it should have 3 columns. And as you can see, they are equally spaced. Only problem is they're like, this is on the left. Ideally, this should be on the very right. This should be on the very left, and this should be in the middle. So I'd rather use flex and justify between, which is space between the thing that we discussed, equal space between them if you use flex. All right, the only difficult thing to build here is the search bar. So let's build a search bar component. Let's see. Yeah, create a new file called searchbar.tsx. The way I did this before the class was I googled Tailwind search bar, and it gave me a very nice Tailwind CSS search input, which is again purely written in Tailwind to create something like this. This is sort of the power of Tailwind. Okay, in this less lines of code, you can create this. You might argue, Harkirat, that is the case for that other thing as well, Material UI, and I would say yes. In fact, Material UI is much less verbose than this. So if you paste this as such, you see a very big file. Also, you need to replace class with class name here, and you see like a very big file. Also, they don't close the input tag. You need to do that as well, and that is good enough to basically yoink this very nice search bar into our own project. So I have the search bar component. I've created an HTML component similar to what we've been creating until now, and I've been able to copy everything from another website which has a bunch of sort of very nice components written in Tailwind that you can simply reuse. All right, the one that I reused was search bar. Let's try to replace our app bar search bar with this search bar that I just copied over from the internet. We'll try to understand each and every sort of class here, but let me first just show what this looks like and how you can very nicely copy over components from the internet. What does it say? I think I just need to restart because I've added a new file. I could be wrong. Let's see. Still the same. Something obvious I'm missing again. Let me try for one more time, then we'll open bounty. Search bar equal to, again something isn't closed, most probably. Form. All right, good to go. Okay, so this search bar I copied over from the internet. This is like usually a good starting point, and then you can clean the things up to make them very close to the YouTube search bar. So you can add you need to make sure the background color is right. This search needs to move to the very end, so on and so forth. I did this before the class, so let me just copy my own invention. Components, app bar, let's see, and this I will explain exactly what it does. Oh, sorry, the search bar. All right, so that was my starting point as well. Slowly I started to remove classes from here that I felt were unnecessary and started to move things to the left and right to finally arrive at this, which looks something like this, which I feel is very close to the YouTube search bar. Still not there, the colors are slightly different, but very close to this YouTube search bar. And what does it look like? Let's try to go through it. The width is, so this I did after a bunch of hit and trial. Okay, if I remove this, let's see what happens. It still works. Let me remove this only. You also don't need this form component, sorry, tag. Okay, let's try to go through this and how this code translates to this beautiful search bar. At the very top, there is a div which has a W-96, which if you go to Tailwind, will tell you is like some width, 200 pixels or something like that. Flex, because it needs two children to be right next to each other. An input box is one child, and then the search button is another child, which is why The parent div needs to have flex, has text gray, because when you type here, I don't think this is also needed because we overwrite text later on. Yeah, should be fine. Border gray 500. This is important. We add a border which is similar to the YouTube border with the color gray dash 500. Rounded 3XL is what makes this rounded. Padding left, padding top. Padding left is needed because you need some padding here, padding top, so on and so forth. So this is like, hopefully this bit is straightforward. Sorry, the first one, the parent child. PR means padding to the right. Text SM means we want small text to be there. And then we have an input box and we have the button. Now this again is copied from the internet. The raw buttons that you have in HTML look something like this, like basically very ugly. If I add a raw button here, you'll see something like this. But if you add some styles to it, your life becomes slightly better, which is what I've done here. The background is black. BG Slate 950 is like almost black. It's sort of a tint of blue. Text should be gray, font should be bold. Some paddings should be rounded. Inline flex and item center is to make sure that this search bar appears on the center of this, vertically on the center of this search bar. And then finally, this is a new concept. How do you get icons in Tailwind? There are a few ways. The easiest one is there's some open source MIT free licenses that they provide. Like someone else provides, not Tailwind, which is this one, hero icons. This is what I used. And they've written a bunch of SVG icons that you can simply copy over. For example, if you want this icon, just click on copy SVG and then it will give you the SVG for it. What is SVG? It's just another format for storing. It stands for scalable vector graphics. And it's sort of like an image, but it basically has all the information for your graphic. So if I paste this other component that I copied from here, another icon that I copied from that website, that is what appears here, which is the arrow. But we want the search bar. So I went to that website, copied over the search bar, and this is what I see here. All right. Hopefully this is straightforward as well. Go back to the search bar. Maybe add some padding to this. And maybe make the logo slightly cleaner. Text dash MD, and maybe add the inline flex item center thing because we want this YouTube to be vertically center of the app bar. There you go, slightly not the center. P padding bottom dash 2, and that looks decent. Do the same for the sign in. Maybe add a sign in button, maybe add some padding to the left, padding to the right, and you're good to go. P-3, but adds padding everywhere. This looks fairly decent. Now again, one thing that you should do is if you go to YouTube, make it smaller. If you look at the app bar, search sort of becomes this. So this is another very nice thing to do, maybe an assignment for this week. This will require a combination of some state management tools. Let me give a hint. Basically, you want the search bar, if the width becomes below a certain point, changes from this very long thing to a small thing. So first you need to know whether or not you are on the small breakpoint. For that, you can use some hooks that are available on the internet. For example, Mui exposes a bunch of those hooks. Don't use that. I'm sure Tailwind exposes a hook or some variable. Get if, maybe it does not. And then you have to do something like render this, and then maybe just render this search bar. This search button, and add class name hidden by default, and if you're on a small screen, hidden by default, and if you're on a small screen, it needs to appear. So inverse of SM, I'm sure there's something like this that allows you to do it. Block, and this guy, let me just show you this for this guy, and then the bottom will be inverse, and you'll have to do some googling actually. But this guy, maybe I say by default it is block, and no, it needs to be the opposite. By default it is visible, and SM hidden. I'm trying something random here. This is most probably the opposite of what we want. You don't need this. SM : hidden would mean this thing is hidden when we are on the bigger than small, and when you're small, it appears. So we want the opposite of this. We want this for when you have a very small screen and just the search icon appears. So hopefully that is clear. Okay, this logic should appear for the thing that's below. Search icon, you need like just the icon. And here should be the inverse of this. How do you do that? You should have to Google. I should have Googled before the class. I'm sure there's an easy way to basically do something like SM inverse or some other thing to do the opposite of the thing that I'm doing. Alrighty, I'm going to remove all of this, and we're not doing the responsive app bar. Ideally, you should if you're submitting this to someone. Alright, app bar is done. This is done. We need like a sidebar, and then we need to implement the main page. Maybe one more thing is okay, when you hover over this should be a pointer, and the way to do this is go to your video card and add cursor dash pointer here, and then if you hover over this now, you see a pointer. All right, let's do a pause. Let's open the chat and see how are we doing. Do you guys want me to just stop, push the code? Oh, the chat was open. All right. Oh, someone wrote something. Let's see. Max SM block hidden. Let's try that. Where is the Tailwind CDN link? Isn't sending props bad? Shouldn't we use something like recoil? It is. Okay, let me take these questions by. Firstly, the chat was open for a really long time, it seems. Okay, big pause. Firstly, poll. ये सब समझ तो आ रहा है ना? This is straightforward. Just me coding, you guys looking at it, but this is straightforward to understand. All right, very good. So 94% are saying this is straightforward. We can do one of two things. I can continue doing this, or there is already the project that I had created, which is this thing, which has basically all the features. You can look through this. From what I can understand, you guys don't need me to go through all of this again, although I could be wrong, so feel free to say that. And then we can just take doubts now, which is like high level doubts you might have related to React, context, search, whatever. Or I can just continue coding this, and then we'll just try to code all of this locally. But it seems like you already understand what I'm doing, so I don't see too much point of me trying to code. So should I continue coding? Yes. Or should we take doubts? So no. Should I continue coding? Then yes. If we should take doubts, do some other casual discussion, then select no. No, that makes sense. That's what I was thinking as well. So okay, the chat is open. This is the project. Let me just quickly show what it looks like, and then you can just read through the project. It seems like you guys understand props and everything, and what is really needed is some high level React that needs to be recapped. So let me just show, if you clone this project finally locally, what appears. It is something like this. This thing should be fixed. It's a little too small, but this, and then if you click on a video, you reach a page like this. So hopefully this is like very straightforward for you to build, and the style is also pretty decent given Tailwind. Let's open chat and now ask me questions first related to React. If you have any high level questions in React, then we can go to global questions, whatever you want to know. Alrighty. So someone asked, isn't sending okay, let me just alright, let's do a pause. You can get YouTube videos from YouTube API. Yes, I know. This was supposed to be very beginner friendly, which is why I did not, but I'm sure there is a way to get them. Yes. Mantine versus Sync Fusion versus Tailwind. So the first two I haven't even heard of. Let's see quickly. And if I haven't heard of them, I can tell you open source projects don't use them. Maybe some do, I don't know, but most of the ones I've seen either use MUI or Tailwind. World's best component suite. Sounds good. Fully featured React components library. My answer is MUI, Tailwind, but like I'm sure these have, every project like uses something new. So, but Tailwind and MUI are the most popular ones. So if you're applying for a company, they'll use that. State management thing recap. We didn't do state management today. I think you mean generally we should recap state management, which I will do. I will basically do a class similar to this, an offline class most probably, where I'm creating website like YouTube. Yeah, maybe I'll just create YouTube, and then there I'll do state management correctly, and then hopefully that gets cleared. Where did we use the Tailwind CDN link? I think you're asking where have we imported Tailwind. The good thing is we just told this guy to do it, which is the create next app to do it. I'm sure it's somewhere here. There you go. This is where we add Tailwind base components and utilities. And where is the code to the main thing? I'm sure it's somewhere here. It's not necessary that we're getting it from CDN. It might just be a dependency somewhere here. Let's see. Tailwind There you go, Tailwind CSS. So it's not coming from a CDN. It's part of our bundle. If you build this project and sort of push it on the internet, it will come from this bundle. But good question. Someone said max SM block hidden. Okay, let's try that. Maybe that is what we were missing. Go to app bar, search bar, and let's do max SM. So max SM is the opposite of SM, I'm assuming. And let's see if that fixed our thing. I don't see search bar. I do see search bar. Is that what we needed? We needed the opposite, right? So can I do this? Yeah, there you go. Okay, that fixed it. Makes sense. That's cool. So yeah, max SM hidden, which means until SM it should be hidden and then block. All right, that makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. Cool, sir. Good one. No bounty though. Your answer was slightly incorrect. Even if it wasn't, there would have been a bounty. I'm running out of money here. What is headless UI mean? Good question. I don't know. I can Google it. I have heard of it. I knew this at some point and I don't know today. Can you install Tailwind extension? It can tell you CSS too when you hover over the Tailwind classes and give you very nice suggestions. That's a good idea. I should probably do that. I don't work with Tailwind too much, but I think that's a good idea for any beginner, anyone else to do. I think it'll make you faster in Tailwind. That's a good idea. Cursor pointer is done. Can we change the width of the search bar in SMMDLG? We can. So it can be something like SM colon W96 and maybe 48 LG colon W-96. Let's see. There you go. Smaller, bigger based on the medium breakpoint. All right. What did I change? This. Small and above, it should be 48. Large and above, it should be 96. All right. All right, so no more questions. Going to open the chat again. So this is basically free time for people who came live. Ask any question now. Could be related to React, could be related to other things. Pause. My question is from where आपने ये सब कुछ सीखा है? I mean, things are quite difficult. So Tailwind I have never done. Today before the class, I was like, we're learning literally nothing new. We've done the same things we're doing again. So at least let's learn something new called Tailwind, and I started reading their docs. Generally that is the framework I follow, but you should be have a lot of practice in at least one framework to be able to context switch between these. But usually I just read through docs. So for everything you see today, I googled, reached the docs, and then came here. ChatGPT did not help me. I don't think it can either, because Tailwind was not as good as it is today in September 2021, which is their cutoff, I think. Can you discuss React query while fetching data and caching instead of using use effect? Okay. So I haven't used React query. I have used a bunch of other frameworks that do something very similar. There is one called use SWR, which I think is very similar to. So let's discuss this, and maybe some hooks also we understand. So what this does is, as you can see, rather than having a top level use effect, and we have discussed this once where we created some custom hooks, but rather than having a top level use effect, we say const data error is loading equal to use SWR. And then the endpoint we're trying to hit, you can also put like the URL here. And this gives you access to three things: the data, whether or not the request failed, and then is loading, which means if the request is going out. So this is actually the same as if you use SWR. I'm sure React query is similar, maybe not, I don't know. I've heard of it, I haven't used it before. But this one that we're using, this is the same as us doing the whole jargon that we did, which was a use effect at the top. So you can have like const loading, set loading equal to use state true, use effect, const data, set data equal to use state. I think you guys get the idea, but let me just quickly finish this. I'm just writing pseudocode here. If Maybe I'll put it inside a try catch. Set error E and set data. That's not data. You guys get the idea, hopefully. This thing is how we used to do use effects until now. Basically fetch data until now, which is define a top level use effect. We did not use any library. We did something else where I told you guys to write a hook function, use data. And this hook would do all of this logic. So just how we wrote a hook that does something like this, use SWR is those guys have written those hooks. Those hooks do something more. They also keep refreshing the data. So if you can give like some input here, refresh interval, what they'll do is they'll have another interval here that will keep refetching the data. Every refresh interval seconds. So these libraries do nothing but expose another hook that makes this slightly cleaner. Rather than you having to write all of this logic, you have a bunch of hooks, and they also internally give you a bunch of other functionalities. If the internet goes down, comes back up, they refresh, they resend the data, fetch information every 20 seconds, whatever. So, but under the hood, it's the same as writing a hook of your own that does all of these things, which is always much better than writing code like we have today. This is also something I'll cover in the offline video, which is like this. This is like the ugliest way to do this. There are a bunch of downsides to this. Never do this. All right, but good question. We have not covered Redux and Redux Toolkit. We've only covered recoil. But if you guys want, but again, like already a lot to cover. If you know recoil, not too difficult to do Redux, but they're at a high level. Maybe that's not right. It's very difficult to do recoil. They're very different. What is the best way to handle APIs with multiple parameters and queries without using React Router DOM? Without using React Router DOM. I recently got a CSV file and I had to do fetching, filtering, sorting, and data from it. What is the best way to handle API with multiple params and queries? So API is a backend thing without using React Router DOM, which is a front-end thing. So I'm a little confused with your question. Can you repeat the question? Maybe elaborate a little bit more. We have time. Is that sending props bad? Shouldn't we use something like recoil? Yes, but like we did not even install recoil today. And also using recoil is good for very big, high level global things, the user information, the courses, so on and so forth in a course selling website. For something like this, like the video card, it's sort of necessary for it to accept things as a prop. You can do something like this, const whatever video equal to use video and then send a video ID. But either way, you have to take at least the video ID as an input, so the card knows which specific thing to render. Now this is where it really depends on the developer what approach they take. But video card to me seems like a thing which should accept video props as an input rather than hitting the state, because it should be a generic component that everyone can use irrespective of what their state management tool is. So for a video card, for highly components that you want to be extremely reusable, you probably want to accept props. For components that for high level information, global information like users and everything, of course you cannot do this. So if there is, let's say in the video card somewhere your username, then you'll have to do a const user equal to use user, where this comes from the recoil state. But if you have, so there's another nuance to this. Okay, usually components are written by UI developers or like, people who just write components, and that's their job. And then there are other people who sort of glue them together. So those people don't understand state management, or they shouldn't understand state management. They should just understand how to write components, CSS, things like this. So for them, it will be very hard if you say, bro, get things from state. Also, when they're writing it, they write it in a very siloed package, which does not even have state management. So these are the reasons for which components that are highly visual, reusable, for example, on YouTube, if I think about these should ideally accept things as props and not as state variables. All right, good question. How to avoid clashes between Tailwind and our own classes? I'm sure there is some way. I mean, short answer is I don't know. But let's see what happens. If I do rounded Excel and I also do style border radius, something very big, 100. Which one of these will it choose? I have no idea. Let's see. It is running. Oh, sorry. There we go. Okay, so I think it ended up choosing Tailwind over my rounded Excel. Let's see. What is the border width radius? It is 0.75 REM, which does come from Tailwind. And is this the place where I added? Oh, I did not add. Okay. Video card, rounded Excel comes here. So let's add another style, border radius 100. Let's see. Oh, it does get mine. So this guy overrides Tailwind for now. I don't know why that is, or like, is that Tailwind always sort of lets the user override? Most probably that's the case. Or it might happen there are clashes and there's like some standard generic way for you to be able to override. But generally the idea is, especially in Tailwind, if you're using Tailwind, you shouldn't ever have to use this. These are all the classes you need to work with, and they have made it in a way that it's good enough to cover most use cases. But if you have to do it, seems like you can override. Facing issues while doing state management with TypeScript and database. Makes sense. Offline video will cover that. I think that is what today should have been. But good to know that now 90% of the Janta understands React and components. The next step, the only big hurdle around left, is the second part of React, which I think is much easier. The first plateau is the hardest, understanding React. If you understand this YouTube app, going from this to state management is still lesser of a plateau. Why did you use arrow functions instead of normal functions? Just personal choice. I write them like, I've been writing them like this, so I have muscle memory to write it like them. You can use normal functions as well. I wanted to ask, how do you type a component and don't execute it when pressed enter in your ZSH? How do you, I think, so you're either asking about reverse search where I press Command R and then I search for npm whatever, and I have not pressed enter, so it works. If I have to exit out of it, I press Command C. Sorry. I press Command C, and then if I press enter, it will run. There's no way to do it. Maybe I did not get your question correctly. My question is, where aapne ye sab kuch seekha? Okay, I think I answered that. So cool. Chat open again. How many people are left? Not too many. Any more question? Oh, bunch of questions. Ando. Pause. So what do you usually use? MUI or raw CSS? Backpack uses MUI. Other projects I've been working on all use MUI basically. Yeah. I would suggest using Tailwind. That's where the world is moving. Eventually, Tailwind moves very fast. It's again one of those funded companies, so most probably will take over MUI is what I think. If you have to choose one, choose that. Got stuck while using React to TypeScript. Okay. So it's not too different. So if you see this, the project that I've posted on GitHub, the original I was writing, it does use TypeScript, and as you can see, it's slightly different from how we were doing things earlier. Earlier we had this. Now we have this. Okay, this video has this type. This seems very, very difficult. So you can also do something like this. Props equal to video card input. And you can be like interface video card input looks something like this. So hopefully this is slightly cleaner, and then everywhere use props.video dot whatever, or do like const video equal to props.video, or if you want to get really ambitious, destructure video right here. So they're all the same things, and we haven't really done any like complicated TypeScript until now. This is like fairly straightforward, and good thing is fairly straightforward TypeScript is what's used in most projects. So basically Jatoya, what is this? GOTAI and Recoil have almost the same concepts, having a backpack of atoms and providing them as the component demands. Correct. Should we focus on Jatoy or Zoostand? Also clients. So you can choose whatever library you want. Just Redux is slightly different, but everything else has a very easy, very less learning curve to move from one to the other. Now Backpack uses Recoil. Cal.com most probably I think uses recoil. So most projects that I'm seeing are using recoil. I'm sure a bunch of legacy projects use Redux. So it really depends on you. Any project that I create today use recoil. Can you show when you were able to navigate and click the video? Does it use YouTube ML model to recommend us video? Bro, no. This is basic React. No backend, no machine learning, nothing at all. It's all the same videos. The same video that's been hard coded into a file. No machine learning, nothing like that. All right. How to learn TypeScript? I think my video was fairly detailed. Covers everything. Probably one of the best lectures that I think I've taken was the TypeScript lecture. If you want to practice more, create a lot of projects and then look at open source projects. They have very sometimes like twisted TypeScript. That's the best way to learn. And maybe TypeScript is something you should learn incrementally, which is you should know basics, you should be able to create a project and then incrementally learn more and more and more. As you need basically. If your project has some requirement where you need to understand, let's say pick the thing that we were looking at yesterday, then you understand that. Otherwise, you don't have to dive very deep into TypeScript on T0. Hooks formed, especially having trouble. Alrighty, we will do that in the upcoming video. Got stuck while using React TypeScript. So how do you learn? So today, how would you learn? Docs or GPT or both? Docs. If I have to do something very quickly, I will use GPT to help me out. And just okay, this is what it was doing under the hood. But always a good idea. If you're learning, to hit Docs and not hit GPT. If you're on a timeline, then you use GPT. Yeah. I wanted to ask, after completing what stage in our course should we start applying to remote job opportunities in the month stack? So if you can already create React, TypeScript, Next.js and two-state management, you know enough. Iske baad it is your speed that matters, your hustle that matters, how deep you go into a project. But there's no downside to applying already. If you, of course, can create something like this that you see on the screen right now, which is like a YouTube clone. You can impress people with this much. But if your fundamentals aren't clear, if someone asks you some simple TypeScript question you cannot answer, then don't do it. But if you can create these things on your own, if you're confident to be able to create a full stack project on your own, it's a good point to apply. If you want to really be like, I want to reach Nirvana before I apply, then make sure you can understand this project completely locally. dub.sh. Iska GitHub code is right here. So make sure you can understand this. If you can, then you're good to go. But then you know much more than what's needed. So this is their code base, very nicely written by someone who works at Vercel. So this is basically the right stack to do things. And if you understand everything here, is when you can call yourself a very good engineer. And uske baad it's all opportunities where you get when you get. So yeah, that's a high level answer. How to put up an element at a particular position within a grid if using margins, it becomes unresponsive. Yeah, like flex center puts things in center, or what about at a particular, so you see, if you really want a particular position, ke upar se 20 pixels from the top, 22 pixels from the right, then you have to do like a fixed position. But that's usually not a use case. For example, here, it is like, okay, this thing should be on the left, this thing should be on the right. So use flex and add like space between. This thing should be on the left, this thing should be on the right. And then of course you add responsiveness by adding like a hamburger if you're really small. You should generally, unless you're creating like a game or something, never use like fixed positions or like give actual pixel positions to an element. They will not be responsive, and you are right on that. But usually it's just should be on the left, should be on the right. And flexbox is like enough for you to, for example, create a page like this. Upar ek div hai, there is a div at the top. These things are on the left, this thing is on the right. Here there is a div, this is on the left, this is on the right. There is a div, there is some padding, a bunch of elements. Here there is a div where there is either a lot of padding or there is some maximum width of this. And then there is a grid. This is on the right, this is on the left. So this is how you should generally do positioning in any React any project, unless you're creating a game where you really need like something on a pixel or so on and so forth. How front-end is different from UI UX designing? Oh, very different. Very UI UX designing requires a design head where you need to understand how you can create designs. Front-end is simply creating components where you need to know how to code and convert them. Basically very different skill sets. And just because design does not mean you can code. I've seen a lot of designers who try to code are not able to, and vice versa. I cannot design, for example, I don't know how to create a page this beautiful. When if you ask me to create a page for a VCS like GitHub, I will create like a very ugly page. But I can write components, so that's the big difference, high level. Is props like an object of a class? No, no. Firstly, React components are not classes. It's just an input. For example, functions have inputs. If you create a function, it can take inputs. So it's just like arguments in a function. If there is a function called get video card, it can take inputs. Let's say it does something that's not Reacty, like related to React. For example, let's say just returns the title. Components are the same as functions. Just how functions take inputs as arguments, components take inputs as props. That's the difference. How do we managing your job if you were doing this course with a full-time job? Weekends are fine, and luckily I know all of these things, so I just need like an hour or two before the class to make sure the class goes smooth, and then it's been okay. Can you help us with gist of Shopify and development? I haven't done it. It's actually very hard for me to read and do. Short answer is no. Long answer is Upwork has a bunch of these opportunities for Shopify plugin development because it's like a very big market in itself. Two markets I've seen. One is WordPress plugin developer. Two is Shopify plugin developer. So you should go deep into it. There are not a lot of people there, and they're very high paying jobs because if you did not know already, 30% of the internet is actually WordPress. So even though React is here and all big projects use React, still 30% of the internet uses WordPress, which is like sort of a no-code tool. So there's a lot of money there, and especially on Upwork. If you go, you'll see a bunch of opportunities. So I unfortunately won't be able to teach it. Cool. If you want to make a function called isGuest, which should return every time I refresh to check if I'm logged in or out, where do you put that function? If I want to make a function isGuest, which should run every time I refresh to check if I'm logged in or not, where should I put that function? So ideally, it should not be a function. It should be a hook that tells you at the very top whether or not the user is logged in. If you want a function itself, then functions are usually not part of this or this. You create a new folder here called utils or I don't know, TS or something like that. Yahan pe nothing front-end related happens, only TypeScript high level happens. So if you have to make sure it's a function and not a hook, put it in a new folder. If it is a hook, maybe put it in a hooks folder here, which is ideally usually the case. Whether or not the person is logged in is part of a hook. And because you want, if the person logs in, for the page to re-render, that won't happen if it's a raw function. Alrighty, cool hai bhai log. I think questions are now moving to what is your package, which I don't want to answer. So we'll call it GraphQL versus TRPC. GraphQL is more popularly used. TRPC is very niche, but cal.com uses it, which is why like, chalo, let's teach it. But TRPC I haven't seen being used too much. It's very advanced also. It will boggle heads. It has boggled my head, so I'm sure it will boggle heads when we reach that week. So yeah. My question is where I answered. Where आपने ये सब सीखा? I mean other things which I think I answered this, which is like I hear of a technology, I'm like चलो इसको पढ़ते हैं, I read the docs and then I go through it. What is the approach to learn anything? I'm lagging behind and confused. So one is you need very high level of primary motivation as to why you're doing it. Eventually at some point you get interested in tech and that becomes your day, so you're like चलो आज Tailwind करते हैं. But usually first step is, if you're in that beginner stage where you have to ask this question, is when you need first motivation. Why are you doing this? Is it for a package? Is it because you like computer science, so on and so forth? First answer that question. Once you have a lot of motivation, then it's like pick a technology, read the docs, build projects. That's the only way to do it. Keep doing that cycle again. If I'm learning AI today, I'm just creating a bunch of projects that I feel people will use. My next video is actually going to be this 5 AI projects, and I'll just try to build one of them, and that's how I learn. So, all right. Cool guys, last set of questions and we'll call it. Any more questions that are lecture related, not what is my package? All right, let's see. Pause. All right, we'll call it there. How do I make a prefix search bar? I mean, exact search, it looks good, but not. How do I make a prefix search bar? Exact search. What do you mean by prefix search bar? I made an exact search. It's good, but not good enough. So from what I understood in your question is you have a search bar which is good but not really good. So the best idea there is to just go to wherever you're copying it from. For example, if you're copying it from YouTube, just go here, look at the styles for the thing. That is how I sort of created the search bar as well. Okay, what is the CSS, and then try to copy it over. If you want it to be pixel perfect, which is I think what you want it to be. Can we fetch a video from the main server? Then it does not have watermarking it added later for the user. Could you think of a better watermarking technique on the backend side? So even if hopefully we get it. Yeah, we're thinking about it. I have a few ideas on this, just don't have the time to implement it. But I have some very nice ideas for watermarking and one more thing which I don't want to reveal because that will be the secret sauce. But there are ways to do what you're asking to do. In fact, happy to chat offline on ideas to do this. This is sort of a research problem as to how you solve this. I do agree the watermarking we have is very stale and like not very useful. So I have a few ideas on it. We'll see. Can child component props know from which parent component it was passed? Can child component props know from which parent component was passed? Usually a child component, like child component was always rendered in a single parent component, right? So, okay, is your question okay, if there is a video card component and it's used in two other places, left bar and maybe line this component. So can video card know where it came from? Short answer is no, most probably, unless there's some weird React thing I don't know about. But if you want to do this, you can simply type in whatever, like parent component, take that as an input and then pass it here, parent component, whatever line, and then whoever is calling it, whoever is rendering, just need to pass the right name in there. Okay, so how do I make user side as each user in to-do app will have their own to-dos? How should the data in the DB will be stored? I think we have done this, whereas like in one of the week 7 or something like that, where to-do app that we created in the database, there should be, along with title, description, done, whatever, there should be something called user ID. I'm sure there is actually a library here on GitHub where we've done this. Let's see, to do app week 12. I don't think this is it. Week 8. In one of these to do apps, we've actually done this. I think the one in which we moved a JavaScript project to TypeScript, was it? Let's see if I can find it for you really quickly. So this is the one. There you go. So to do schema has title, description, done, and user ID. The person who has this specific to do. So basically just go through this week 8 repo. It has the answer to your question. How many hours you code for your work daily? Around 6 hours I code, I think 6 to 7. How do you find recently funded startups over code base? They come in. So the way it works for me is they come on my Twitter feed. I look at them. I apply. There's like some talk of the hour. Okay, this company raised so much. Cookie auth in MERN. So we did cookie auth in the next auth application. Like we did not do it from scratch. We used next auth. That does use cookies for it. So you can go through that video, Tarun. Can we do week 10 assignment deep dive or recap? Can we do week 10 assignment deep dive to recap state management, TypeScript and Next.js? What was week 10 assignment again? Let's see, week 10 assignment. Okay, stop share, going to stop recording as well. Just answering a few more questions.